It's January 2005 and Nick is on stage at the Sydney Opera House paying tribute to Leonard Cohen with a couple of performances that will eventually find their way into the movie I'm Your Man. Now, it took me a minute to figure out who was playing those delicate arpeggios on Suzanne. At least one Discogs entry tells us that it's our old mate Smokey Hormel from episode 2, but it's definitely not Smokey. Coincidentally though, it is another guitarist about whom I learned during my Tom Waits journey, Chris Spedding. Here's what I had to say about him in the Tom Waits doco. So you know what I love about doing things like this? The names it uncovers that I was entirely ignorant of up until this point, like Chris Spedding. Chris only appears on that one track on Rain Dogs, but check out his list of accomplishments. He produced the Sex Pistols' first recordings. He played with Eno, Jack Bruce, McCartney, Bryan Ferry, Roxy Music, Elton John, Ginger Baker. Played the solo on Me, Myself, I for Joan Armatrading. He played on this. That's unreal. Sorry, Chris, I'd never heard of you until today. The one thing I didn't know about Chris at that time was that he was also the guitar-playing Womble. That's so cool. Chris also plays some tasty blues licks at the end of I'm Your Man from the Leonard Cohen tribute show. At this juncture, after working alongside 30-odd guitarists, our illustrious songsmith decides to have a go at playing some guitar himself, spanking his own plank, so to speak. Nick, who traditionally composed at the piano, began writing songs on the guitar. He then recruited Bad Seeds' Martyn P on bass, Jim Sclavunos on drums, and Warren Ellis, who'd been shredding violin with the Bad Seeds for the last 7 albums, since Let Love In '93. And the 4 became Grinderman. Now, I just want to talk about Warren Ellis, whom I'm certain every Nick Cave fan watching already knows, but he swapped his trademark violin for a guitar-ish thing in Grinderman, while also contributing some guitar work to ensuing Bad Seeds recordings. Born on Valentine's Day 1965 in Ballarat, the other side of Melbourne, Warren Ellis plays the violin, piano, bouzouki, guitar, flute, mandolin, mandocello, and voila, viola. As Warren tells it, when he was just a kid playing at the tip, I found an accordion at the local rubbish dump and learnt how to play it, and it just went from there. I was always able to get a tune out of most instruments, playing violin, flute and accordion. In 1988, he busked his way around Europe, and upon his return he met drummer Jim White, guitarist Mick Turner, and they formed Dirty Three in 1990. The trio has gone on to release 9 albums. Beyond the Bad Seeds and Grinderman, Warren has collaborated with Nick on more than 20 soundtrack albums, including The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, Lawless, War Machine, Back to Black, and Dharma, Monster. But he's also contributed to songs and albums by a ton of esoteric greats, like literally hundreds of appearances. Marianne Faithfull, Cat Power, Primal Scream, Oot Lemper, The 1975, C6 Steve, Mark Lanigan, and so many Aussie legends, The Cruel Sea, Low Carmen, Avalanches, Tex Perkins, Tex Don and Charlie, the Black-Eyed Susans, Dave Graney with the Coral Snakes. So yeah, he's another national treasure. And Grinderman's eponymous debut kicks off with a ferociously fuzzed out guitar figure. But it's not Warren Ellis. I believe Mr. Cave might be the guilty party responsible for that raucous riff. It's actually a loop, and by checking out some live performances of the song, we can quickly see that no one's even pretending to play that on stage. Now I have to talk about the entirely berserk guitar solo on No Pussy Blues. Back in 2022, I made a video about the greatest Australian guitar solos. And when I was casting about for input, this song was suggested to me by a friend. Thanks, Frank. I listened to it back then, completely ignorant as to who played guitar in Grinderman. And I decided that as much as the solo fitted the song perfectly, there is just no way I'd be able to transcribe it or figure out how to play any of it. And now I know why. Because it's just Nick Cave bollocksing about, flailing his open strings through tons of distortion and a wah pedal. So exactly what guitar playing does Warren Ellis contribute to this album? Well, the liner notes give us nothing, except to say that Nick alone gets a credit for playing electric guitar. So he's playing that noodly, beginnerish guitar solo on the title track. Nick plays the 3-note melody on Go Tell the Women, while Warren plays that cool muted pattern on his Fender Mandocaster. He also plays the honeybee riffs on his Mando. And then on I Don't Need You to Set Me Free, we get to hear Warren unleash some improv on that mini instrument. Depth Charge Ethel's great riff is played by Nick on organ, but the distorted twangy accompaniment is Warren's electric bouzouki. And Nick also plays the guitar riff on the album's closer, Love Bomb. While Warren plays that microtonal melody over the top. The album credits also tell us that Bad Seeds bassist Martyn P plays acoustic guitar on this album, although I'm not exactly sure where that occurs. Martyn Paul Casey was born in Chesterfield, Derbyshire, in the old Dart, 10th July 1960, and moved to Western Australia at the age of 5. He joined the critically acclaimed WA band The Triffids in 1982, releasing 7 albums and EPs as well as a live recording. In 1989, Martyn had a brief stint with the Black Eyed Susans before joining the Bad Seeds for the Good Son Tour in April 1990, when Kid Congo Powers left and Mick Harvey swapped from playing bass back to 6-string duties. Martyn has since played bass on every Bad Seeds release since Henry's Dream back in '92. Martyn has contributed bass lines to albums by a dozen other artists beyond Cave, Grinderman and the Triffids, but I don't think he's been credited with playing guitar anywhere other than the Grinderman albums. Speaking of Dirty Three guitarist Mick Turner, let's zip back to 1996 when Nick performed a hidden track on a CD of music inspired by TV series The X-Files. Nick was accompanied on Time Jesum Transientum et Non Reverentum by Warren Ellis' Dirty Three, including, of course, Mick Turner on guitar. Mick is from Melbourne, where, as a glam and garage rocking 13-year-old, he began teaching himself guitar. He went on to form Sick Things at age 19, calling himself Mick Sick. These lads were argued by one critic to be Melbourne's rawest hardcore outfit. Have a listen to their single Committed to Suicide here on YouTube. In 1983, Mick took up an offer from another band to move to the UK with The Moodists, a band featuring future Coral Snakes Dave Graney and Claire Moore. He's another prolific Melbourne guitarist. Aside from releases with Dirty Three, he's appeared on more than 20 albums, including 4 solo outings. And as Mick told 15 Questions, art is everything, and means everything, and nothing. In 2006, Nick contributed a sea shanty called Fire Down Below to a compilation album called Rogues Gallery. The guitarist credited on this recording is Leo Abrahams. Now, this is one of those moments that I live for when researching and composing these little docos, because I had never heard of him, but that just makes me super ignorant, because English musician and producer Leo Abrahams has been a busy boy. He's released half a dozen solo works, a stack of soundtracks, as well as endless collaborations with some absolutely colossal names. He's furnished riffs for Christina Aguilera, Ed Sheeran, Seal, Bryan Ferry, Harry Styles, Miley Cyrus, Imogen Heap, Ed Harcourt, Mark Ronson, James Morrison, Grace Jones, Ronan Keating, KT Tunstall, Mary-Ann Faithfull, Lewis Capaldi, Paloma Faith. He played sitar on a CeeLo Green track. He played fretless bass for Paul Simon. He's worked with the legendary Brian Eno a lot. If you want to get a good listen to Leo's guitar playing, check out his tasty tone on The Girl with One Eye off Florence and the Machine's huge album Lungs. He arranged strings for Star Sailor. No, Nick Kershaw. He's written with Paolo Nutini. He's produced songs and albums for Regina Spektor, Natalie Imbruglia, Bell and Sebastian, Katie Malua. I just love discovering legends like Leo Abrahams and sending him some love. Also in 2006, Nick Cave appeared on a kids' music album called Catch That Train by an American artist named Dan Zanes. Not exactly the Wiggles, a bit less preschool and a bit more cool-sounding folkiness, I guess. Nick sang a song, Sweet Rosie Ann, accompanied on guitar by Zanes. Dan Zanes released half a dozen albums with a band called the Delph Wagos before embarking on his successful family music career. By the way, the album in question won the Grammy for Best Children's Album in 2007. Dig Lazarus Dig opens with Mick Harvey playing that perfectly simple E to A riff perfectly. Bad Seeds organist James Johnston gains another guitar credit for his part in the wall of distorted guitars on Albert Goes West. In fact, I feel like James may be responsible for the wild lead parts on this track too. In 2008, Nick appeared on Marianne Faithfull's covers album Easy Come, Easy Go, duetting with her on a Decemberists song, Crane Wife 3. The guitarist on this session was Faithfull's longtime collaborator Barry Reynolds. Barry Reynolds, who hails from Lancashire, has played on a sensationally cool list of works. Grace Jones, Joe Cocker, Tom Tom Club, Robert Palmer, Sly and Robbie, Roberta Flack, Toots and the Maytals, Bubba Marl, Anthony and the Johnsons, Rita Coolidge, Jeff Goldblum. Also in 2008, Nick and the rest of Grinderman played Just Like a King off C6 Steve's album I Started Out With Nothing. You've no doubt heard of C6 Steve, as he's enjoyed a reasonably high profile over the past few decades, pumping out a dozen albums of slide blues on his 3-string guitar. Oh, and his bass player is often John Paul Jones. And then in January 2009, after 36 years at Nick's side, Mick Harvey left the building. There he goes. Mid-2009 tour date commitments were covered by legendary Saints co-founder, songwriter and guitarist Ed Kuepper. Edmund Kuepper moved to Queensland, Australia from Bremen, Germany in the 1960s. At Oxley High School in Brisbane, he met Chris Bailey and Ivor Hay, with whom he would form the Saints in 1973. The Saints released their first single, punk classic I'm Stranded, in 1976, ahead of the likes of the Pistols, the Damned and the Clash. Ed left the Saints in 78, formed Laughing Clowns in 79, and has gone on to release a couple of dozen solo albums, the most recent being this year's After the Flood, with Dirty Three drummer Jim White. Another late 2000s diversion involving some new names on guitar revolved around the late Jeffrey Lee Pierce. Remember JLP, the gun club guy who recruited Kid Congo Powers? In the early 90s, he was collaborating with an English guitarist known professionally as Cypress Grove. And some years after Pierce's death, Cypress Grove found a heap of rehearsal cassettes and decided to try and work them up into something releasable. The eventual 4-volume project, the Jeffrey Lee Pierce Sessions, has seen Nick turn in 5 performances with as many guitarists. On Volume 1, We Are Only Riders, released in 2009, Nick appears on the opening track, Ramblin' Mind. Ramblin' Mind was built on Jeffrey Lee Pierce's original demo recording, so for a start, it features JLP himself on guitar. Also present are Bad Seeds alumni Mick Harvey and Kid Congo Powers, along with the mysterious Mr. Cypress Grove. Born Tony Chmalik in London in 1959, Cypress began playing guitar in his teens and got to know Jeffrey Lee Pierce after a chance meeting at the London pub where Cypress was playing covers. JLP joined Cypress for an approximate rendition of Van Morrison's Gloria, which then led to Jeffrey asking Cypress to work with him on a blues project, which resulted in the rehearsal tapes that spawned the Sessions project. Track 13 on We Are Only Riders, Free to Walk, sees Mick and Cypress again backing Nick as he duets with Debbie Harry. This time, however, they are joined by Chris Stein. Yeah, the guitarist who formed Blondie with Debbie Harry in 1974 after they broke away from precursor Stiletto and went on to co-write classics like Heart of Glass and Rapture together. Interestingly, Cypress Grove also contributes his own version of Ramblin' Mind to the album, with Nick on backing vocals. This take features a guitarist by the name of Kahn Orrell. Kahn Orrell, born in Frankfurt, Germany, is a musician, producer, performer, actor and visual artist. He goes by many names. Kahn Khan of Finland, 4E, Biz OD, Giz TV, El Turco Loco, Captain Comatose, HEAD, Super 8 Global Electronic Network. He's produced soundtracks and collabs and a dozen or so solo releases. He's not necessarily known as a guitarist, but he's definitely a busy fella. Volume 2, The Journey is Long, released in 2012, contains another couple of Cave contributions. The first, City in Pain, is another song that features some original JLP recording, along with Cypress. And this time Cypress's mate Mick who plays lead on Cypress's original projects. The other track is Breaking Hands, again with Debbie Harry and Chris Stein, on Moog guitar this time. This track features some slide guitar played by a relatively unknown guitarist named Jeff Zentner. Jeff has played alongside not only Nick and Debbie Harry, but Iggy Pop. But the interesting thing is, he's now a successful author. Well, I find that interesting. Then in 2014, Volume 3, Axles and Sockets, sees Nick duet with Iggy Pop on track 1, Nobody's City. On guitar this time, along with Cypress and Cousins, we have none other than Thurston Moore. I'm sure you all know Thurston, the guy behind Sonic Youth, the guy that tunes his Fender Jazzmaster in some different bizarre made-up conflation of notes for almost every song. The guy who then plays them through mountains of gain and reverb, resulting in unearthly drones and feedback and caterwauling. Well, that sounded a bit disparaging. Oh, I don't mean to. I really like Thurston Moore. Thurston Moore has hundreds of credits, working with loads of like-minded noisemongers. But did you know he's worked on albums by Nancy Sinatra, John Zorn, Yoko Ono, Lydia Lunch, R.E.M. Track 5 on Volume 3, Into the Fire, is another Debbie Harry collab, again backed by Cypress, Cousins and Jeff Zentner. So moving on to Volume 4, The Task Has Overwhelmed Us, released in 2023. Nick lends backing vocals to track 5, Go Tell the Mountain, and this time, along with Mick Cousins, we have a dobro played by Terry Lee Hale. Terry Lee Hale is a solo artist, a singer-songwriter from Texas who earned some success around Seattle during the grunge era, singing his dark songs over open tunings as he opened for the likes of Soundgarden and Screaming Trees. He eventually found even more success in Europe, releasing some critically acclaimed solo works. Finally, track 10, On the Other Side, is yet another Cave and Harry duet, again with guitars by the now legendary Cypress Grove. The final chapter is upon us. There's a punk and a drunk, a proghead and a blockhead, and we'll finally talk about George Vergestica. Stay tuned.